Hello everyone, my name is Lalit Soni and you are watching Drishti IAS. This is MCQ Practice Series under the initiative that is Target UPSC Prelims 2024. This will be the sixth set of environment MCQs. There are 5 videos which already has been uploaded. So let's start with the sixth one. And the question number 1 is, which of the following statement is not correct regarding carbon credits? Okay, so we are talking about carbon credit. When we are talking about this carbon credit or carbon market, etc., you should remember the Kyoto Protocol. Okay. So, coming to this particular options, the carbon credit system was ratified in conjunction with the Kyoto Protocol. This statement is correct. Then the carbon credits are provided to those countries or groups which have reduced the emission of greenhouse gases and brought them below the emission limit. Obviously, there is this emission limit, and if you are going for the emissions which are below this particular limit, so you will be provided a credit for this much amount. Okay, so let's say this is your carbon limit. You were supposed to emit only this much, but your country has emitted only this amount of carbon. Okay, so this particular you can say deficit can be credited to you. So that is basically a carbon credit. So this statement is also correct. The aim of carbon credit is to curb the increase in the carbon dioxide emissions. So that is logical. So this statement is correct. Buying and selling of carbon credit is done by United Nations Environment Program on the basis of price fixed from time to time. Now this statement is incorrect because that is not done by UNEP, but you can say that it is done on the European exchange. Okay, so we will talk about this. So option D would be a right answer over here. Let's see. So all these things we have already discussed, because when we are talking about the Kyoto Protocol, and this is under UNFCCC, because you know that in UNFCCC there are some initiatives has been taken to fight the climate change. Okay, so there are these Annex 1 countries. When we are talking about Annex 1 countries, these are basically your, you can say, developed countries mostly, okay, or the industrial countries. Okay, they have been put under the Annex 1, and now these countries actually will get carbon credit if they are going for emissions below their limit. Okay, now carbon credits are awarded to the countries or the group that emit less than a specified amount of carbon, or you can say greenhouse gases emission. Okay, now when we are talking about this particular carbon credit system, that is applicable to all the countries, but when we are talking about this Annex 1 countries, in this particular annexure there are industrial countries which has been actually put under this. Okay, now the goal is to curb the increase in the carbon emissions, which we have already seen. Then when we are talking about the currently traded activities, or the when we are talking about the carbon credits, where are they traded actively? So here you can say these are traded under future contracts. Okay, they are traded under future contracts on the European exchange. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Option D would was the right answer. Now question number 2, which of the following are the priority areas of IUCN? When we are talking about IUCN, you can say that it is a non-profit organization. Okay, it is not an intergovernmental organization. Okay, so there are various stakeholders which are also part of your IUCN. So it is not a intergovernmental organization but a non-profit organization. Okay, now they are saying that what are the priority areas? Okay, biodiversity, yes, because we talk about these critically endangered species, or there are various categorizations over there. Then climate change, obviously the habitat etc has been actually influenced by this particular you can say climate change, so that also becomes part of it. Sustainable development, that is also part of it. Human welfare, when we are talking about the development, that means that we are also talking about the human welfare. Okay, then green economy. Okay, so these all are part of your IUCN's focus. Okay, option D would be a right answer. Here you can see, when we are talking about IUCN, it is a body which was actually formed in 1948. Okay, and it is a member association typically composed of both governmental as well as civil society organization. As I told you, this is not just an intergovernmental organization, there are various other stakeholders too. Okay, it provides information and the tools for the public, private and non-governmental organizations that strive to simultaneously enable human progress, economic development and the nature conservation. So basically they are talking about the human progress, economic development as well as the nature conservation. So these are all the areas where they are basically working on. So we have already discussed these areas in the question. So now question number 3, which of the following statements are correct with reference to the reasons for the climate change? Now this is very basic questions. Okay, change in the Earth's orbital characteristics or the axial tilt. Okay, when we are talking about the orbital characteristics or the axial tilt, you know that this is your sun, and around the sun we have this particular orbit under which our Earth is revolving around the sun. Now these axial tilt, when we are talking about, you know that we have a axial tilt of the Earth, this axial tilt and the characteristics of the orbit, these are basically deciding factor how much insolation or the how much you can say heat from the sun will fall on the Earth. Okay, so that is one of the reason for the climate change. Now when we are talking about the climate change per se, that is a natural activity which is bound to happen, but the thing is it is been happening at a faster pace because of the intervention of the human. Okay, so when we are talking about the climate change, it will happen anyway, because you know that Earth has gone through various cycles of the temperature, wherein Earth was ball of fire, then it was altogether a cold body, and now it is habitable. So these changes has been happening by the nature itself. But again, when we are talking about the climate change right now, that is because of the anthropogenic activities, because human interference has paced up this activity. Okay, so because of this particular tilt, you can say that naturally this is happening, one thing. Second is effect of substance and gases released from the volcano. So when we are talking about these volcanoes, you know that from the craters there are various gases, then there are ash, then we have water vapors. Okay, and other than that there are various dust particles, etc., they are coming out of it. Okay, so all these things, and there is a lot of enormous amount of heat is coming released out of it. So ultimately that is impacting the climate change. Okay, when we are talking about these gases, etc., they are having this potential of heat capturing, or you can say greenhouse gas related potential or warming potential. Okay, I would say warming potential and not greenhouse gas potential. We will say warming potential. So ultimately they will also be part of your climate change activities. Variation in the number of dark spots on the sun. Okay, so when we are talking about the composition of the sun and the surface of the sun, there are certain spots which are called as dark spots. Okay, so let's say if that is basically your sun, there are some spots which are there on the sun. Okay, these spots are relatively darker. Okay, so because these spots have a specific you can say characteristics, that are they are cooler than the nearby surface. Okay, so these sunspots are basically colder in nature, they are cooler, or you can say in this particular area you can say the temperature is relatively lesser than the surrounding area. I'm not saying the temperature is less, I'm saying the temperature is relatively lesser than the surrounding areas, because of which these are having a cooling effect. So if the number of sunspot is increasing, you will say that the temperature will decrease. Okay, so ultimately that will have some kind of influence on the Earth as well, because ultimately insolation or the amount of energy which is coming from the sun will reduce. Okay, so that if the number of sunspot is increasing, then if the number of the sunspots is decreasing, then you can say that temperature is increasing, because number of sunspot is decreasing, that means that these colder areas or the cooler areas are basically less in number, and that's why temperature is higher. Okay, so ultimately this will also have an effect on the temperature change, or you can say climate change. Then amount of water vapors. Now when we are talking about the water vapors, they are also having this warming potential. Warming potential means that they will trap the heat which is radiated out of the Earth. Okay, so if there is a presence of water vapor in the environment, higher presence of water vapor means that higher amount of energy or the long wave radiations will be getting trapped inside the atmosphere. Okay, that will increase the temperature, that will ultimately affect the climate change. So obviously we can say that all four are basically reasons for the climate change. Okay, so here you can see you can go through this particular slide, because I have explained everything over here. Okay, so I hope that is clear. Now coming to the question number 4. Carbon capture and storage has become an essential tool in fight against the rising level of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Which of the following are considered suitable options for the storing carbon capture, or captured carbon? Now when we are talking about the carbon capture, here it means that let's say there is this industry from which this carbon dioxide is being released. Okay, now this from the this industry carbon dioxide is released. Now what we are doing is we are trying to capture it, we are trying to store it. Okay, we will store it, then we will transport it to a site where we can sequestrate it. Okay, or you can say ultimately, I'm sorry, I would like to tell you that we will capture it first. Okay, we will capture this carbon dioxide which is getting out of the industry, then we will transport it to site where we can store it. Okay, now they are asking us that which of the following are the suitable site for this particular storage. Okay, so here you can say depleted oil fields. So when there are depleted oil fields, there are some voids. Okay, which voids can be filled with the carbon dioxide. Okay, so that is also one area where we can go for the capturing of the carbon. Then Depleted gas fields, obviously same as oil, same these when you extract the gas out of these fields, there is this void which we can fill with the carbon dioxide. Okay, deep saline formations. Okay, so this is also particularly, you can say, the area where you can go for the sequestration of carbon. Then declining oil fields. Okay, so I think this is repeated over here, or declining or depleted. So you can say that all of them are basically a right answer. Okay, here you can see carbon capture, utilization and the storage includes method and technology to remove flue gases. Okay, these flue gases are nothing but the gases which are released from the industries, chimneys and pipes. Okay, so basically these flue gases are basically captured, and then using various methods we can go for the storage of these, and CO2 is basically one of them. We are trying to store it from the atmosphere. We are trying to capture it from the atmosphere and store somewhere else. Okay, why? Because we are trying to curb the greenhouse gas emissions, and CO2 is one of them. Okay, after recycling and the safe and the permanent storage options for CO2 are determined. Okay, so when we are talking about this particular CCS chain consists three parts. As I already told you, we will capture it first, then we will transport it, and then we will safely store it. Okay, now storage site can be past exploited gas and oil fields, deep saline formations, like that is like some porous rocks are there which are filled with the salty water, and then we can store carbon dioxide over there. Okay, then alkaline oil fields, and there are where infiltration of the carbon can increase the amount of oil extracted. Okay, so one thing over here is that when we are talking about these alkaline oil fields, carbon dioxide has this particular property to go for the acidification. So if there is an alkaline oil field, okay, we will add the carbon dioxide over there after extracting this particular oil from this particular field. Okay, so we can say that carbon dioxide has certain properties because of which the oil extraction becomes important if oil is alkaline in the nature. Okay, so I hope this is clear. So option D is your right answer. Now all these things you will understand is your basics are correct. When we are talking about this CO2 and acidity, you should know that how CO2 will enhance the acidity. Okay, we will talk about it in the later slides. Consider the following statement with reference to the carbon capture and utilization storage. Okay, now carbon dioxide has commercial and the industrial uses, which is true, especially to enhance oil recovery in the oil fields. We just talked about it. Okay, enhance the oil recovery. If oil fields are alkaline, then carbon dioxide can be used for that. Okay, now carbon dioxide has the ability to change the properties of oil and facilitate the extraction. This is also correct. So both 1 and 2 would be your right answer. This I have already explained, so I will not go into details of it. If you want to read it, you can read it. Okay, now question number 6. Consider the following activities: laying of finely ground basalt rock in the field on the large scale. Okay, so they are talking about the basalt rock in the fields, like basically these are your farming fields can be there. Okay, otherwise if you are going for the carbon dioxide capturing, then also basalt rock can be used. Okay, so that is one thing. Second is increasing the alkalinity of the oceans by adding lime. We will talk about that. Capturing carbon dioxide released by various industries and pumping into abandoned underground mines in the form of decarbonized water. Okay, how many of the above mentioned activities are often considered and discussed for the carbon capture and sequestration? We have talked about it. So here you can say increasing the alkalinity of the ocean by adding lime. Now when we are talking about adding lime, okay, so if you add the lime, then you will increase the alkalinity. So when you are alkalinity, you are increasing, that means that oceans are becoming less acidic. Okay, if alkalinity is increasing, that means that ocean is becoming less acidic. So less acidic means that it can store more carbon dioxide, because carbon dioxide has the capacity to go for the ocean acidification. Okay, so since we are adding lime, so this acidification will reduce, and then there will be more scope for carbon dioxide, so you can store more carbon dioxide. Okay, so that is basically one technique wherein we add lime in the ocean water, so that acidity can be reduced and so that carbon dioxide can be absorbed more. Okay, so this statement is basically correct. Okay, and when we are talking about these basalt rocks, when we are talking about basalt rock, these are having some kind of formations, let's say CaSiO2 or MgSiO2. Other than that, there are various other minerals which are present over there. When we are using these basalt rocks in the field, and then there is this water, okay, because of the rain, because of let's say if in the agricultural field we are going for the irrigation, and then we have carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. When these two things actually react, they will form H2CO3. okay, so this is carbonate, this is actually your carbonic acid. Okay, so this is basically carbonic acid. That means that if there is a basaltic rock, or you can say in a farm field, they will capture the carbon dioxide to form the carbonic acid. Okay, so that is one area where you can go for the capturing of the carbon. Okay, now if fields are capturing the carbon, okay, so carbon available for the oceans will be less. So you can say that the burden of storing the or absorbing the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere that is on the ocean, that can reduce. Okay, because you are going for the storage by these fields as well. Okay, so that is another method wherein you can go for the capture of carbon dioxide, because the basaltic rocks, okay, they will along with the water and atmospheric carbon dioxide, they will capture this carbon dioxide and form into H2CO3, that is carbonic acid. Okay, now this we have already talked about, so this is also true. So all three will be your right answer. Okay, see, carbon sequestration is a both natural and the artificial process. If we are doing it, that is artificial process. If nature by itself is doing it, because obviously as I told you, oceans will capture the carbon dioxide, that is a natural process. Okay, and by which carbon dioxide is removed from the Earth's atmosphere and stored in the liquid or solid form, that is carbon sequestration. Okay, now there are various views, as various formats wherein that can be done. One of them is we will capture it, then we will transport it, and then we will store it. Okay, so that is already been discussed, these two factors. Now ground basalt, as I told you, in the agriculture fertilizer, they can be used as the agriculture fertilizer, which because I told you that these basalt rocks are having various kind of nutrients which can be helpful for the plants. So like you can say magnesium, potassium, calcium, as I told you that CaSiO2 will be there, MgSiO2 will be there. Okay, iron will be there, FAO, and then the phosphorus will be there. All these things can be used as a fertilizer, or you can say nutrients for the plants. So when you use this ground basalt, okay, so there are various reactions which can store the carbon dioxide, which we have already seen. Okay, now oceans absorb nearly 25% of the carbon dioxide emitted through the human activities. Okay, and if we are going by the method of basalt rocks on the field, we can sequester or the store more carbon dioxide. Okay, now adding lime in the ocean neutralizes the acid. As I told you, carbon dioxide has this potential. In the ocean, we will have carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Then there will be H2O, which is present in the ocean, that will form H2CO3, that is basically a carbonic acid. So again, if carbonic acid is forming, that means that oceans are becoming acidic. Okay, but if you are adding lime, HCO3, okay, or you are adding lime into it, so they will go for the increase in the alkalinity. If the alkalinity is increasing, that means that ocean will be less acidic. That means that it can absorb more carbon dioxide. Okay, now suitable storage locations, which we have already discussed, so you can go through this. Now consider the following pairs: Annex 1 countries, certified emission reductions, clean development mechanism. Okay, then there are certain protocols which are given in front of you. When we are talking about this carbon market related or the carbon credit or carbon storage related things, these are all part of your Kyoto protocol. Okay, so now we one thing is sure, that there is only one which is matched, that is your only three. Cartagena protocol is basically related with your biosafety with respect to the living modified organisms. And when we are talking about the Nagoya protocol, that is basically related with the fair and equitable treatment, or you can say sharing of the genetic resources. Okay, so that is about your Nagoya protocol. And then Cartagena is basically about the biosafety. Then you have Kyoto protocol, that is related to your carbon markets. There are certain other like Stockholm convention, then there is Minamata convention. All these convention or the specific protocols you should remember. Okay, so option C would be right answer. I have explained all these things over here, so you can go through this. Okay, as I told you, this Kyoto protocol is basically under the UNFCCC, and that is related to your carbon change. Okay, we have talked about Annex 1 countries. Okay, And there is this flexible mechanism under the Kyoto that is related to your emission trading, clean development mechanism, joint implementation, which allows the Annex 1 countries to meet their greenhouse gas emissions target by purchasing the greenhouse gas emission related or reduction credits. Okay, so those countries who has gone for the lesser emission, they can be given a credit. Okay, and that these credits can be purchased, okay, by the Annex 1 countries to make sure that they are also under the you can say emission limits. Okay, now all these things I have already talked about. Nagoya Protocol is related to your sharing of the benefits or use of the genetic resources in a fair and equitable manner. And when we are talking about the 𝐸𝐻𝐒 protocol, it is adopted as a supplementary agreement on the biosafety, which is basically related to protection, or you can say protect biodiversity from the potential risk posed by the modified living organisms. Okay, now question number 8, with reference to the forest carbon partnership facility, which of the following statements are correct, is or are correct? It is a global partnership of government, business, civil society and indigenous people. So by prima facie looking at the statement, it is also talking about the partnership, it is also talking about the partnership, so there are chances that this can be correct. It helps countries in the effort to reduce emissions from the deforestation and the forest degradation, that is REDD+ initiative, by providing financial and the technical assistance. Okay, so this is also talking about the forest, so there are chances this can happen, but again you can go and read about REDD+. Okay, so option C would be a right answer over here. Let's discuss about it. The Forest Carbon Partnership Facility is a global partnership of the government, business, civil society and the local communities, and the focus is on reducing the deforestation and degradation, forest carbon stock conservation, sustainable management of the forest, promoting forest carbon storage in developing countries. Okay, so that is one thing. All these activities are generally called REDD+, that is REDD+ activities, reducing emissions from the deforestation and the forest degradation. Okay, so option C was your right answer. Now question number 9 is, consider the following statement with reference to Green Climate Fund. Okay, now it is controlled by the World Bank. Now again, when we are talking about the climate related activities, most of the funds are either under UNFCCC, and when we are talking the World Bank, it is mostly about the development related funds. Okay, so that is incorrect. Then it involves private sector facility, and objective of which is to increase private investment, so this is correct. Okay, one thing. Then in the Energy and the Resource Institute, that is TERI, is the first Indian organizations to receive direct access to entry status under GCF. That is not TERI, this is NABARD. Okay, NABARD has got this access. Okay, so you can say that only 2 would be your right answer. Okay, when we are talking about this particular statement, who control this fund, so there is this GCF board. For this there is a specific board which has been created, that is GCF board under UNFCCC. Okay, so they control this particular you can say fund. Okay, so here Green Climate Fund is financial mechanism under UNFCCC which help in climate finance investments at global level. So the purpose of this GCF is to provide financial facilities from the developed countries to the developing countries to address the climate change, which is quite obvious. It helps countries to limit and reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, which is quite a general statement to make. And then there is this GCF board which is responsible for the oversight and the control of the GEF, or you can say this Green Environment Fund. Okay, and it specifies a private sector facility that aims to catalyze the private investments. Okay, I hope this is clear. Now this NABARD, National Bank for Agriculture and the Rural Development, is the first Indian institute to get direct access to it. Okay, now question number 10, which of the following statement best describe the Stockholm Convention? I have told you that there are some conventions and some protocols which you must remember. So let's see, I will start with this option D here. An international treaty for fair and equitable sharing of the benefits. We have already talked about this. That is Nagoya Protocol. Okay, the multilateral treaty to promote share responsibility with respect to the import of hazardous chemicals. Okay, so we will talk about it later. Then there is this international treaty designed to promote the Indian Ocean from anthropogenic emissions and you can say release of the mercury. When we are talking about the mercury, there is this Minamata. There is this Minamata Convention. Okay, so that forms the you can say convention for the you can say when we are talking about the Indian Ocean, from the anthropogenic emissions and the release of the mercury and the mercury compounds. Okay, so I hope that is clear. Then when we are talking about this first one, the global treaty to protect human health and the environment from the persistent organic pollutants, that is your Stockholm Convention. So I hope this is clear. Okay, so option A is your right answer. When we are talking about this option C, that is your, you can say, import of hazardous chemicals, that is your Rotterdam Convention is there. So please remember, there is this Stockholm Convention, there is Minamata Convention, then there is the Rotterdam, then there is Nagoya Protocol, then there is this you can say Cartagena, and then Kyoto Protocol, Paris Climate Agreement. So all these are quite important for your examination point of view. You can make a list of all these things so that you can be it can be very handy for you to answer in the examination. Now last part, that is your basically practice question. Consider the following statements with reference to V20. Okay, now coming to the last part, that is basically your practice question. Consider the following statement with reference to V20. Your statements are: this group of vulnerable countries that are most affected by the climate change. Then second is, this group comprised of the finance ministers of the member countries on the occasion of G20. The goal of this group is to arrange and manage the funds to deal with the risk of climate change by establishing V20 climate risk pooling mechanism. Okay, so you have to choose the correct statements and answer accordingly. So you can practice this question, you can attempt this question and answer in the comment box. With that, I would like to wrap up this session. I hope you have subscribed the channel. If you have not done that, please subscribe the channel. Thank you. Have a nice day.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.